Yeah, wise man here from Johannesburg.
Hi, good morning to you, Cathy. It's Kali. My input is here, man, is we need leadership in this whole, in our country. Nah? We geographically, we are water scarce country. Okay. And the other one is we are one of the richest countries, in the world. Nah? And yet we have so much of poorness. Okay. In all this, what we need is leadership. That is all. How to manage and run things. Thank you. It's nice to take advice from like Trevor Manuel and so on. Have a good day, Kathy.
Good morning, my sister, my Castaigne in Kailicha. You know what, my sister, DA will never get out to be in government of national unity. Will never get out there because those guys, they know they are paying. Bayapatalwa siswam. They will never get out. Trust me when I'm saying that. Thank you.
Justice system. And
Good morning, Kathy. The Omotoso issue, private hospital versus public hospital, private schools versus majority of the public schools, private legal representative versus the public prosecution. Same thing goes. Money buys the law. So we mustn't forget that if you've got money, you're gonna get the best lawyers who shamelessly defend people like Omotoso. State needs to do something about all its entities, from NPA to schools and hospitals. Thank you.
Good morning, Oskethy. It's Brother Chaka here in Western Cape. Oskethy, it is with a heavy heart that I'm sending this message. Truck drivers are dying on the roads. Some will call it recklessness, and some will call it, misbehaving of truck drivers. But there is a reason behind the working hours. They are not being adhered to. And the moment you raise that issue, the employers will fire you. And they take advantage because our politicians, they are also driven by the same issue. That's why you see they change colors every time. Because nobody wants to join the queue of 350 Auskethy. Nobody.
Good morning, Sis Kathy. I'm just worried about the rate the NPA is losing these cases. I'm looking at Coco, Zizi, Estina Dairy Farm, Omotoso. Can we also expect the same with the Zondo's case as well? This is not helping the South Africans to trust the NPA anymore. I wonder what needs to be done. If need be, can the president intervene? Because the trend at which the failures of the NPA is running, it really will affect the public confidence to the institution. Vusi Pretoria.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Get unbeatable football odds with SuperSport Bet. From derbies to title deciders, our Super Boosts give you boosted odds you won't find anywhere else. Switch today and get a 100% deposit match up to 5,000 Rand. SuperSport Bet is licensed by the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. Bookmaker license 101911097. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. National Responsible Gambling Program. Toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help 076 675 0710.
SASSA Gold Card beneficiaries can still come and collect their new Postbank Black Card. Avoid the risk of not receiving your grant. Join over 1.3 million beneficiaries that are already conveniently receiving their grant using the Postbank Black Card. There are multiple selected outlets nationwide where you can swap your SASSA Gold Card for the new Postbank Black Card. Dial *120 *355# to find one near you. Standard rates apply. Postbank, your bank.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Well, for this hour of our conversation, we're going to be looking at public trust, particularly in the justice system. Looking at the latest research coming out of Afrobarometer, which is a research organization, one of the questions that they have asked or that they have looked at is just how much trust ordinary South Africans have in the integrity of their judicial system. And some of the latest findings from that research, I'll quote research from 2021. And the question there is what I have just described. How much trust do ordinary South Africans have in the integrity of their judicial system? The findings there are that 53% of South Africans trust their courts just a little or not at all. 53%. And that's compared to the 43% of South Africans who say that they trust the courts somewhat, and some say they trust the courts a lot. When we look at the trust levels within the courts compared to other sectors in society, South Africans trust courts less than they trust broadcasters, less than they trust the health department, less than they trust the army in this country. And you find that as you unpack some of that research even further, the demographic, the levels of trust per demographic is even lower. So what you're likely to see is that there are even greater levels of distrust among the poor and those who are uneducated versus those who are perhaps more financially better off and who are educated. And this, of course, is really about the experience that people also have when they have to interact with the courts. Now, this is important because, of course, access to justice is seen as a pivotal part of democracy. You not only need good governance, but you also need institutions that are able to hold individuals to account. And it is the strength of those institutions that ultimately inform public opinion and inform how people then relate with the various experiences that they're having. So joining us for this conversation is Dr. Jane Redpath. She's a senior researcher at the Africa Criminal Justice Reform, the Dola Omar Institute and University of Western Cape. Dr. Redpath, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners.
Mike Bolhes is a specialist investigator and crime expert. Mike, good morning.
Morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
And of course, hopefully, we'll still be able to join us will be Mpumelelo Zikalala, who's a criminal lawyer and managing director at Zikalala Attorneys. I'll let you know as soon as he is up on the line. So, Jane, if we can maybe just begin with reflecting on the significance of access to justice and the impact that has on democracy, and how people then see or judge whether a democracy is working for them in relation to whether or not they're able to access justice.
Cathy, you were absolutely correct to focus on trust. Trust is fundamental not only to the criminal justice system, but to each of its constituent elements, to the police, to the prosecution, to the courts. If people do not trust the system, then we are in a very bad situation because it means that they will resort to other methods of resolving their disputes, and very often this can lead to violence. Now, trust is, as I've said, absolutely essential, and if we look at the Afrobarometer surveys, as you've mentioned, going back 20 years or more, we can see that we started at quite low levels of trust in South Africa in the post-apartheid period for obvious reasons. But then we had quite significant improvements up until around 2010, 2011. And then we see those improvements being lost over the next 10 or 12 years. And a functioning criminal justice system based on trust is fundamental to democratic accountability, because it is the justice system which must hold people to account who have broken the trust of society by committing crimes. If the justice system cannot do that because people are too scared to be witnesses, people are too scared to come forward, and or simply don't trust the government to resolve the system to resolve their dispute, then the whole system begins to fray and to fall apart. And this is particularly important even in other parts of our justice system, in the civil section, where it's necessary for disputes between parties for there to be certainty that these will be resolved in a fair and just manner. Without that, without a properly functioning criminal justice system, the crime situation gets out of control. There is no faith in starting up a business or in carrying out business activities, and there's a negative spiral which then comes into place. The criminal justice system is absolutely crucial to our democracy.
Mike, do you want to reflect on that before we start getting into some of the nitty-gritty in as far as the components that make up what we call the criminal justice system?
All right. So the lady that just spoke, my statement of everything and anything about trust, which is in effect so. So all of that, what she has stated there, that could happen, has happened and is happening. It's a downward spiral. It's not getting better. All the good that we know is becoming less. All the evil that we know is becoming more. If you read the newspapers, it's very seldom that you'll read a success story. We are as specialist investigators in serious violent, serious cyber, and serious economic crimes, inundated with crime cases that has fallen on the wayside, that there was corruption involved, corrupt policemen or authorities, those who brought the cases falling away on the wayside due to, as she has said, by influence or intimidation. There is just not good news, unfortunately, but I am very well known in the media and nationwide that I always stand for what is good as well. I stand for what is wrong, but you must be known for what is good. So what she has said is what should be in place and what is what needs to be done. But the possibility of this happening is very little, and it's very easy to explain. If you as a human being in this country, and it's only for those, unfortunately, because there are so many illiterate people in South Africa, and this is not an ugly statement from my side, it's a realistic statement, and we are all to blame, this whole country. But let's start with those who do understand what I'm saying. If you say the president's name and you have to answer two questions. One, do you trust him or not? And you start saying that you don't trust the president, you can go down. Do you trust the justice minister? And then the head of police? And then you can go down. Do you trust your municipality heads? Do you trust your local police station? You will very seldom hear an immediate response of yes, So this brings the human beings in our country to a point where they will, as she has said, opt other routes. Then you ask in the civil side, do you trust the lawyers today? Do you trust private investigators today? Do you trust any other safety and security institutions or all other networks that has to do with the possibility of assisting those who are undergoing any form of crime, from the smallest to the worst? Then you also hear there's a bit of a concern, because corruption has totally and absolutely infiltrated this country, because crime works. It works, and it pays. And crime begets crime. When it's very easy to explain there as well. If there's a robbery in a street and it's not dealt with immediately and severely, and it's not investigated, properly identified, evaluated, risk analysis been done, the crime solved and crime prevention in place, what happens? The second does, and the third, because they can get away with it. So if you take two things out of this country, one thing actually, just one, crime. If you take crime out of this country, what are you left with? Peace, happiness, prosperity, safety, security. Everything goes away, from burglar bars to all your alarm systems and to any and other situations. It means you don't have to check your phone. You don't have to worry if something comes through, that if you open it, you are hacked. You have no cyber crime. You have no economic crime. You trust your banker. You trust your local police station. You trust the president. There will be total trust.
All right.
Now, this is an idyllic statement, but this is the problem, and this is what's bringing this country to the ground, and we're nearly on the ground.
Mpumelelo, your take?
Morning to your listeners.
Hi. So I wanted to know your take on the question of these declining trust levels that South Africans have in the country's criminal justice system and in the courts.
Well, I think it's a multiple number of issues that are there which can be addressed, but most of them, or to the core of them, is the implementation of the laws that we have. For example, it's very seldom where it will be the law that is inadequate. The law is there, can be interpreted. The instruments which are supposed to distinguish or assess or adjudicate whether the process is correct or not, or whether the person is guilty or not, is also there. But the implementers or the implementing agents are the ones that need to be looked at. By that, I mean the investigating officer, and I also mean the prosecutor. Let's look at it from the side of investigating officers. An SAPS member takes +6 months to a year to be qualified. And then the question is, how long does it take before you become an investigating officer? What type of training do we need to do, and what type of experience do we need to do? Are you taking on other courses which are going to enable you to do this investigation, which is required? Do you have a much better understanding on what type of evidence is required in court? For example, do we have people that are legally trained that are regarded as high-class investigating officers because they would know what is required when you go to court in order to come back with a verdict of guilty beyond reasonable doubt? You take that type of training and that type of thinking and expand it over to the prosecution, and you say to them, do you understand the type of burden that you have? Do you understand what is required from your side so that you're able to execute on this mandate that you've been given by the Constitution? Added to that is the reassurance from the victims, explaining the process, what is required, and keeping them up to date as what's going to happen on a daily basis, on a regular basis, so that they're in the loop and it's not as if their matters have been forgotten. If we can master that particular process, I can assure you that we would have much better results in dealing with the level of trust that is there. Right now, depending on who you talk to, you are going to find individuals that said, I went to my local SAPS and I got justice, but unfortunately, there's also a high number which is going to say, well, I've been there, I didn't get anything. It's as if the matter did not happen, and I haven't been updated up until now, or up until I saw the perpetrator coming out with their own bail.
All right. We're going to continue the conversation shortly, and when we do, I want us to also unpack the different aspects or components of the criminal justice system. For now, it's 10:30, time for your latest news headlines.
Good morning. In the headlines, Parliament's Justice and Constitutional Development Committee has agreed to recommend Advocate Dinky Dube to be appointed as Deputy Public Protector. The N3 is closed on Van Reenen's Pass after 2 trucks caught fire following a crash. 1 person died in the crash. And the South African government says it will continue to engage the Trump administration following the newly imposed tariffs on South African exports to the US. I'll have details on these and other stories at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 19 rand 08 to the dollar, 24 rand 83 to the pound, and 21 rand 02 to the euro. Markets in Asia were lower at the closing bell. The JSE has extended losses during mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are currently trading in the red. Gold is trading at $3,093 and platinum $939 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $68.69 a barrel.
Mzansi, you don't want to miss out on Powerball, which is estimated at a massive 100 million rand jackpot this Friday. Don't delay. Play Powerball for an estimated 100 million rand jackpot today, and you could be celebrating millions. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
SV Werder Bremen are highly spirited to put their best foot forward to triumph. But Eintracht Frankfurt enjoy life in the top 3, and they want to keep it like that. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Experience the glittering encounter of German football. SV Werder Bremen versus Eintracht Frankfurt. This Saturday, 5 April at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. The conversation that we're looking at this morning is the declining levels of trust that South Africans have in the integrity of their judicial system and what the impact of that is for democracy, what the impact of that is also just for access to justice. Mpumelelo Zigalala is a criminal lawyer, Mike Bolhes is a specialist investigator, and Dr. Jane Redpath is a senior researcher at the Africa Criminal Justice Reform Institute. So, Jane, I want to come back to you. There are 3 components that make up what we end up describing as the criminal justice system in South Africa. Mpumelelo has already alluded to this. So we have the SAPS, that is one leg of it. We have the National Prosecuting Authority, where all the prosecutors sit. That's another leg. And then, of course, we have the country's courts, where you have your presiding officers. These are your magistrates, your judges. That's another leg of what we ultimately say is the criminal justice system. Often when people are failed by either of these spheres, of these legs, their interpretation is to say the criminal justice system is not working. And yet what we see on the other end is that there seems to be a much more pronounced need or amongst, let's say, the SAPS, when a matter has failed, to say, no, but we did everything we could. It was the NPA, it was the prosecutors that didn't do their jobs. The prosecutors will come back and point fingers either at the quality of evidence they received or point fingers at the presiding officers. But a lot of South Africans aren't looking at these different legs as I've described them in silos. They're looking at the holistic experience, and rightfully so, because it is the criminal justice system. But why are we seeing that more and more there seems to be an acting that is in silos by these three different components, and not really acting as part of the same machinery to achieve the same goal, which is really creating access to justice for South Africans? Jane? I don't know where Jane has gone there. It looks like she's lost connection. We'll have her up in a moment. But Mpumelelo, maybe you can speak to that in the meantime. Hello, Mpumelelo? All right, I'm not sure what has happened with our lines. It looks like we've lost all of our guests. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and then we will come back with the conversation.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Hi, I'm Zycard. Catch me every Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. on Spotlight as we bring you blow-by-blow sporting action, news. That's Spotlight every Saturday. You don't want to miss it.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. We're looking at the low levels of trust within the country's justice system and various components of the justice system. It looks like we've got our guest back on the line. Apologies for that. I'm not sure what happened there. Mpumelelo Zikalala, you back on the line? Mpumelelo?
Hello.
There we go. We've got you. Mike?
Yep.
Wonderful. And Jane?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay, great to have you all back on, and apologies for that. So Jane, the question I had asked before you were cut off was really around the different components that make up the criminal justice system, which is the SAPS, the NPA, and the country's courts where the magistrates and judges sit. When South Africans have a negative experience with either one of those components, they're likely to then, have these lower levels of trust in those systems. And yet, when we look at it as a whole, these different components often see themselves as being independent from the other. So the police will often say they did what they needed to. It's the NPA that must be blamed. The NPA can equally point fingers at the presiding officers, at the police, for not doing the work that they needed to do. And we see more and more of that. And the question I was asking you is why that is the case
Your
when
call has been
all
placed
of these
on hold.
components should be working towards one objective.
The problem is
Placed
the
on
performance
hold.
indicator. Hello? Are you,
Yes,
can
Jane?
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Sorry.
you.
Part of the problem is the performance indicators that apply to each part of the criminal justice system, which also includes things like legal aid and correctional services, but the main parts are the police, the prosecution, and the courts. Now, the police are mainly judged on dockets that they forward on to the NPA, whether or not those dockets are good enough to actually prosecute on or not. Meanwhile, the prosecution is judged on the success in court. This encourages them not to take on cases which are more difficult or which are a little bit weak. So what's supposed to happen is the prosecution is supposed to go back to the investigators and say, you need to strengthen this case, and then we'll take it on and we'll run with it then. But what tends to happen is, although they do that, they choose only the cases that are relatively easy to convict. In fact, the conviction rate for most cases is very high of the cases that they choose to prosecute. It's in the 90%, you may be surprised to hear. But that's because they don't prosecute the cases that are more difficult. And this is all related to the performance indicators that apply. Now, the problem comes with very high-profile cases like our corruption cases and this case that we've just seen yesterday, the Omatorso case, where it isn't really an option to say this case is too difficult, we're not going to prosecute it. The public is so invested, they have to prosecute. And then the ability to prosecute the more difficult cases is undermined by the fact that, as a matter of course, the easier cases are the ones which they prosecute. Now, I mean, a lot of red flags in the Omatorso case came out for me. Firstly, so many charges. Pick the charges that you know that you can prove. Too many charges chosen. The duration of the case since 2018. This is unreasonable to expect witnesses to continue to come to court. In studies that I've done, after the sixth postponement, witnesses tend to give up, and in fact, if someone is out on bail, they tend not to come back to court after the sixth postponement. And that, I think, is actually quite reasonable. We are now looking in our system, way more than six postponements tends to be the rule. And we can imagine how that undermines the whole system. Well, the problem is the system is not working together. The courts themselves are under pressure. We only have 200 judges, around 1,000 magistrates. They have to hear all of these matters. And so what happens is, if a case doesn't run on a particular day, they have to postpone it into the far future because there simply isn't an available date. And then if any one of the parties is not there on that available date, then it is postponed again far in the future. The management of that whole system needs to be properly looked into, and I'm hoping that the minister, whose attention has been brought onto this case, and hopefully some good will come out of this case, and that the minister will see that the systems and processes in place to govern all of this are simply not working anymore. We also need new legislation for the prosecuting authority. The legislation has not protected the prosecuting authority, firstly, from being captured, and secondly, from being able to act without fear, favor, or prejudice. And we really need new legislation to come through. And we know that the minister of the sixth administration, Ronald Lamola, he undertook that in this current parliament that there would be new legislation for the NPA, making it more independent, making it able to hire specialist skills without going to the Department of Justice's Director General and Minister for permission so that they can hire the skills that they need in these more difficult, complicated cases in order to win them. Now, this current Minister Kubai, has indicated she's aware of the problem, but there still is no legislation before Parliament, and the Department of Justice doesn't seem to be drafting that legislation, which we really, really need to have the NPA more independent, more able to hire the extra special skills that it needs in the more difficult cases which we need to prosecute.
Mike, this idea of easy cases versus difficult cases, in as far as the assessment that prosecutors make is quite an important one. But I would argue that it is also very subjective, because the reason why individuals such as yourselves, as private and specialist investigators, are finding yourselves with so much work is because you are filling a gap in the market that one would think ordinarily should have been what the SAPS are able to do when they investigate matters, but that capacity is simply not there. So when we sit and we assess the difficulty of cases, do you think that we are circumventing justice in some instances simply because the evidence that has been collected or even the intricacies of a matter are beyond the capacity of the police and the prosecutors who must prosecute?
Basically, your question in one sentence is, are the criminal justice system qualified? No, they're not. I would say maybe 20% is. Once again, I always have to identify, and we say what we mean and mean what we say, what the exact problem is. You cannot hire a painter and then a diesel mechanic does the work. You cannot hire a diesel mechanic and ask a painter to fix the engine. You need to be qualified. Secondly, a policeman is supposed to be more qualified than the normal individual in South Africa in order to give the protection, prevention, and the service that is required of them to serve. They must have the attitude to be there. They must be fit, at least can run 100 or 200 meters to catch a criminal. They must be knowledgeable. They must be intelligent. They must be a bar. They must be seen as the go-to guys, as people with a solution, the authorities with a solution. I'm talking about the prosecutors as well, and any and everybody, whether it's private security, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's anybody that has a hand in safety and security in South Africa. And we don't see that. And that's why people like us, which are super qualified, which are all ex-policemen, which has left the police because there were no phones, no vehicles, no infrastructure, and no support. And because 80% is corrupt, looking the other way, don't have the correct attitude, and the 20% that really wants to do the work has no support. And if they do stand out, they are ousted, worked out, or killed even. Because the police corruption is one of the worst and most dangerous corruptions that you get in South Africa. Because here you have a badge that gives you so much access to any and everybody's information, and you can enter and go in everywhere and do and create or manipulate and commit crime as you like if you have the criminal intent in mind. So what the previous people have said on the show is once again, in effect, especially the first guy that spoke in the beginning about qualifications. If you don't have a proper trained specialist policeman in your station, you don't have a policeman. You have somebody there that's just getting a salary, getting a pension, doing whatever he can or she can to avoid. I mean, we get so many complaints of people saying they walk in the police station and already they sigh, like, and they just don't even have an attitude from how's it, how you come, how can I help you? There's just no proper communication. And then the expertise, you need to be super qualified. Otherwise you can't do the work. And if you don't have that in the judicial system and in the government, because remember, any and everybody in the government and in the municipalities is part and parcel of fighting crime, preventing crime, identifying crime, investigating crime, solving crime, and most of all, making sure that they are protecting and serving us, because we pay them. And then obviously I must address the public as well. The public is the last, but they must try always and support the police and assist. And always give them a chance so that the 20% becomes the 80%.
Mpumelelo, again, just staying on this idea of complexity, right? Jane talks about a conviction rate that is over 90%. But if you are then to sit down and say, how many cases sat before a prosecutor and how many did they opt to continue with, how many did they leave behind due to this question of complexity? Surely that in and of itself is problematic, and again comes down to the experience that people have. Because when I want to access justice, my thinking is that you as the prosecutor are going to take what is a complex matter, make it simple for me, but also make it simple in terms of the law in order to identify which aspects of the law have been contravened and which levers of justice then can one be using.
It's one of those complex issues which does not need the prosecutor alone. Remember, there are a number of various components that would come in. So the prosecutor is one of them, because that's the implementer of the law. That's the person who's going to bring the evidence to the judge, so that the judge is able to come to a conclusion. You then have the investigating officers that have got to investigate and collect the evidence that will come back with a conviction. You then have members of the society that are either victims or either they are accused in this matter, or they're also contributing factors because they then become witnesses. So the number of cases in which a prosecutor is going to deal with, of course, is going to have an impact. That speaks to the resources in which the prosecution ought to have. And also the training is going to be there, because if I have 50 cases dealing with a certain expert, then the question would be, do I even have enough time to go and read those cases, do my research in terms of case law, consult extensively with my witnesses so that I better understand how I'm going to extract that evidence from them. The witnesses are going to have their own sort of characteristics and nature. So there's someone who's going to be very frank when responding. There's someone who's going to be very timid. There's going to be language barriers that can occur in certain instances. So it's the training which is required, both from the side of prosecution to say, how do we handle these complex matters? Only, let's go a step down and say to the investigating officers, how do we investigate these matters in a manner which is quickly collecting the evidence which is relevant, collecting evidence which will not be tainted, and making sure that it's collected within record time. Because another thing that you don't want is a matter being investigated for 3 years, and the quality and the quantity of the evidence then deteriorates, because people may die. People will also forget, leading to contradictions when they need to come back and deliver. But another important part that we sometimes don't deal with is the society itself. A person who creates or commits a crime is either a relative, a mother, a father, a cousin, sister. There's some sort of relations in which they're going to be linked to one other human being. And there's also a societal problem which sometimes we are not dealing with, that we need to deal with on a regular basis, and then say, how do we solve these issues on a societal basis, to say, let's deal with them and make individuals aware that you need to behave in a certain manner. But on the side of the state, because that's what we're going to look at when certain transgressions have taken place, certainly training and resources must be poured towards the same process, so that we're able to deal with the matters and to make sure that we come up with these conviction rates at a rate which will leave all the victims happy.
All right, I want to bring in some of the contributions of our listeners on the WhatsApp line.
Cathy and your guest, this issue of SAPS and poor detective work. I work at recruitment as a recruitment officer. There was a guy who applied having an LLB. So during the shortlisting, the station commanders of Pretoria, They say, no, we don't want this guy. This guy is too qualified. If he goes to college, when he comes back, this guy is not going to stay here. He's going to be a station commander. No, we don't want. We want people with only standard 10. They are afraid. They don't want people who are qualified because they are threatened by their position. Because most of the senior managers, if you look at the SAPS, they don't have PhD, masters or whatever. No, they are scared. If you've got qualification, you are a threat to management of SAPS.
Good morning, Ms. Cathy. This is Mato speaking. I think the way things are going on in our country, our judiciary is independent. But the way they run things, there's something missing there. The personnel, the implementation and enforcing the law according to the Constitution, when you deal with the crimes that have been committed against those who have been victimized by the situations or those who victimize them, those who do all this crime, they got money to pay the so-called good lawyers, but not on the justice side of on the matter on the table. People are suffering because the judiciary is biased. Their independence is destroying our country because they don't put the right judgment where it's supposed to be. The cases are taking long. At the end of the day, they struggle.
Thanks for those contributions. And I guess then the question to ask as we wrap up is, given the state of affairs right now, realistically, how long is it going to take to turn things around? Jane, how long is it going to take to actually get the criminal justice system back on track in its entirety?
Well, the evidence suggests that since 2019, there has been some improvement. Unfortunately, that was disrupted by the COVID lockdown. And what we have now is something of a post-COVID crisis. And what we need is a realization of the crisis. Unless there is a realization that we are in a crisis in the system, then it will not be turned around. There is no urgency at the moment from anyone around the state of the criminal justice system. The situation is urgent. We need to fix it. We need all hands on deck. The way we did in the early 2000s when we had a crime wave then. At that point, we pulled out all the stops. We had after-hours courts. We hired people overtime. We managed to send 250,000 people to prison. Now we're looking at around 50,000 a year. We need to get back to where we were in the early 2000s. And for that, we need to recognize that we're in a crisis.
All right. Mike, very briefly.
Yeah, the bottom line is my prayer to God constantly, 24/7 in my mind, is that He would save our country. Without God, it's not able. Secondly, if the public, the authorities and the government don't see eye to eye and at least see crime as the common goal to eradicate, obviously to identify, evaluate, investigate, solve and prevent. And thirdly, unfortunately, the bad news, I don't see this. I pray for this and in faith do want this to happen. But realistically, seeing what we're dealing with, it's getting worse. And this is going to give the collapse in our country. And it's going to cause much, much more harm to the public and everybody else.
Sure. Mpumelelo?
For me, it's adopting a victim-centric solution, which is going to, well, efficiency must be at the core of it. In order for you to do that, look at elements of society, look at the elements of law enforcement agencies, that's the police and prosecution, look at the elements of the courts, how efficiently are they able to work, and lastly, look at the legislatures. They are the ones that sit in parliament and draft all these rules. If they're not in touch or not in sync with the type of issues that are cropping up on a daily basis, they may be drafting legislation which is accurate, but when it comes to the implementation, it becomes a problem. And also, let's provide the appropriate resources if you want to fight crime. You can't fight crime if you do not have the appropriate resources because it develops on a daily basis. We are always going to be on the back foot if we don't focus on that one.
Let me thank you all for your time this morning, Mpumelelo, Mike and Jane. It's 11 o'clock, time for your latest news update.
In our top stories, Advocate Dube recommended as Deputy Public Protector, and South Africa to continue to engage Trump's administration. Good morning. Parliament's Justice and Constitutional Development Committee has agreed to recommend Advocate Dinky Dube to be appointed as Deputy Public Protector. This position has been vacant for more than a year after the then Deputy Public Protector, Koleka Kaleka, was appointed to the top job in November 2023. The initial process of finding a suitable candidate to recommend for appointment to President Cyril Ramaphosa was abandoned last year, following reasonable apprehension of bias because of the presence of former Public Protector Busiswe Mkhwebane, who was an EFF MP on the Justice Committee at the time. Parliament held a new round of interviews in October last year. The N3 is closed on Van Riemen's Pass after 2 trucks caught fire following a crash. KwaZulu-Natal Road Traffic Inspectorate spokesperson Cindy Msimanga says 1 person died in the crash.
The road is completely closed on the N3 Van Riemen's Pass following an accident that took place this morning involving 2 heavy motor vehicles. Both these heavy motor vehicles are on fire and traffic is stacked on scene. It's been reported that 1 truck driver lost his life due to this accident. All the emergency services on scene are working tirelessly to ensure that the road is open as soon as possible.
The Cape Town Magistrates Court has found a 45-year-old woman guilty of money laundering and the contravention of exchange control regulations when over $500,000 and more than 2 million rand in cash were found in her possession. Hawk spokesperson Zinzi Hani says Mohammed Amin was found with the amounts of money at a business lounge at the international departures at Cape Town International Airport in 2017. Amin failed to declare the money and was on her way to Dubai when she was arrested. Hani says the accused was sentenced to 8 years imprisonment for money laundering. Amin was also sentenced to 5 years for the contravention of exchange control regulations. Hani says both sentences were wholly suspended. Members of the National Health, Education and Allied Workers Union, NEHAWU, in the Northwest have started to gather ahead of their march to hand over a memorandum of grievances to the Premier, Lazarus Mokgosi. The union says they are forced to act after 7 of its members were fired for participating in a legal protest action at the Northwest Parks and Tourism Board. This follows Mokhosi's alleged failure to intervene at the board, which is an entity of the Provincial Department of Economic Development, Environment, Conservation and Tourism. This despite numerous calls by the union for him to take action against MEC Bitsa Lenkopane. Thabo Shuping is NEHAWU's regional secretary in Mahikeng.
To give him the memorandum regarding the maladministration in Northwest Parks Board and also regarding the issue of late payments of salaries in Northwest Parks Board, the issue of non-payment of salary increment in Parks Board. Also, will be marching also against the termination of employment of 7 of our shop stewards in Madikwe in Parks Board, who were terminated because they were raising the issues that were affecting the mess workers. We are also calling for the Premier to urge and instruct the MEC to come to the table and discuss issues that are challenging the workers.
The South African government says it will continue to engage the Trump administration following the newly imposed tariffs on South African exports to the U.S. International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola and Minister of Trade and Industry Pax Tau will today outline South Africa's strategic approach to the new U.S. tariff regime. The International Relations Director General Zane Dango spoke to SABC News about the meeting they held with American officials.
The number of countries on the African continent who may be partners to AGOA that have been levied with tariffs, it does mean that AGOA as a vehicle needs to be renegotiated or looked at. And so there is space for engagement and negotiation around those issues. The trade concerns is something that almost every Sherpa has raised. So there's real concern that the G20 is working on how do we make international trade more fair.
Recapping the top story, Parliament's Justice and Constitutional Development Committee has agreed to recommend Advocate Dinky Dube to be appointed as Deputy Public Protector. The Office of the Public Protector has been without a deputy for over a year. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Music heritage, right here on the Friday Wind Down.
Bella Kamali, Hosina Lerato, Utlaushua, Mushoa Modimo, Lele Oka, Bella Kamali, Hosina Lerato, Utlaushua, Mushoa Modimo, Lele Oka, Bella Kamali, Hosina Lerato, Utlaushua, Mushoa Modimo. Kiriliga ukara bella, how will it ship my camera? When I was Kiriliga ukara bella, when I hosting only road. What a bella, what a rikamoshi, Yande, Urapella Edina.
It's the Friday Wind Down, and today, of course, we're honored to have in studio with us the one and only Mr. Lindelani Mkhize, chairman of the Contempo Group, co-founder of Joyous Celebration. And you heard there Modimo ke lerato, and just before we went to break, yes, wena kumhlobo. Mr. Mkhize, good morning. No, don't act shy. Don't act shy. Hey, what is this? You're behaving like a coy, young man who's just afraid, not sure about what's about to happen. What's going on?
I'm trying to work out which hat am I wearing today or right now.
Okay. well, can I help you?
It's Friday, so the weekend starts. So which part of?
I'm not going to be putting you in any hot seat.
Please don't. I was listening to you the previous hour. You were very serious. And that's not me.
So is this what?
Be that serious?
So is this what has intimidated you? No, we're not very serious people. Patrick, are we very serious people?
Please take it easy.
No, and it's the Friday wind down.
Please, let us wind down. That's why I'm trying to think. Are we still there on the business, serious work mode, or we're winding down to start? So once I can adjust my bearings, where are we? Then we are good and ready to go.
Let me confirm to you, we are on the wind down, which means that we are relaxing.
Awesome.
Which means that we are putting our feet up.
Ooh,
Serious Cathy has put herself in a box. In fact, the producers picked her up and out of studio. Yeah. She left the studio about 17 minutes ago when we started with the 11 o'clock hour.
I prefer the easy
So
Cathy.
you've got the easygoing Cathy, who loves panda bears and pictures of roses and sunflowers.
Well, in that case, don't even call me Mister. Don't even call me Doctor. Just call me Lindelani. Then I'm like, oh,
wonderful, wonderful. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. You have started what has become a cultural, religious revolution in the institution that is Joyous Celebration.
Sure.
Did you have any idea that Joyous Celebration would become what it is, and that it would feed so deeply into a Christian and even Pentecostal culture of what music in churches looks like and what people aspire for music in their churches to look like?
Cathy, I must say, when I do something on the musical side of things, I come from a business side. I approach it as a business. Where do I see revenue generation? One. But also, most importantly, for Lindelani being the person I am, how am I going to make an impact on this? 2, 3, is it going to change anyone's lives? Can people live on this? So with those things, the response to that is yes and no. We didn't see it firstly taking this long because we were responding to the moment at that time. I mean, one of the things that drove me was I was coming from almost all the genres in the country. I had been successful in jazz music. I had been successful in kwaito music. I've been successful in Afro pop and Afro soul. So because my background was gospel music, growing up with a mom who was a choir conductor running the music in the church, that was my background. I saw the gap within the business side of things. That why is gospel music not among the top contemporary or top selling styles and genres of music in the country? So my approach was from that side of things.
So you never set out to say, oh no, let's give gospel music a different sound.
It definitely was about that.
Okay.
Because when we are trying to put something on the map, you have to first have your consumer. Who is the target audience? Yes, the target audience was the church-going people, which at that time it was mostly mature to older people. But to make something popular, you need to tap into the youth. So to tap into the youth, you have to bring some freshness, some uniqueness, something that the youth will appreciate. And that's why even today, Joyous Celebration is still one of those brands, because we have a huge following of across the board, whole family, from young person to kids to teenagers to middle-aged people to grandparents and stuff. They go to an event, to the show, and enjoy the same way because it's like a kaleidoscope of sound. It's like a journey through music while we are worshiping, while we are ministering, while I won't call church, but with Joyous Celebration, we managed to focus on the positive lifestyle of it. So that even if you're not a church-going person, but you look forward to going to that event.
And that's probably perhaps one of the fascinating things about Joyous Celebration is that you might not be a church, but of course, if one goes to your shows, you're going to find people, whether they go to church every Sunday or not, they'll be there. Yeah. But then you'll also find different denominations that enjoy the music, that believe in the music. How do you balance that? Especially now that you're able to look at it retrospectively. Has there been pressure to say, no, but you are supported by Christians. So you have to show that you are truly a Christian, group. And these are our expectations of you.
Very true. There is always pressure, because when we talk about different denominations, the way they worship, the way they church, it's very, very different. So we try to not take sides. We try to be kind of in the middle, but while responding to everyone. But how we then respond to that, when we come back to music as a whole, music as a business, you need to draw the line. When you are a music creator, there are emotions involved, which means it's feelings. But also, you have to make business decisions which don't need emotions and feelings. So how do you strike a balance of those two in making or in creating music? So when we get that criticism, we then would try and deal with it and take the emotions out of this. In a if we have to make a business decision, what kind of direction, what kind of route, what will we do? But if we have to make an emotional decision, which now is gospel-y, churchy, and all those kind of things, what will we do? How then do we create a cross of the two so that out there people understand it? It's not easy, believe me.
And the thing is, you of course are approaching it as a creative at heart. As you've outlined, having done so many different genres of music, this becomes another platform to express that creativity. But then you'll have the groups that are there listening. They're like, hey, spiritual.
Yes, definitely.
How do you deal with that?
We get that a lot. I mean, thank God I'm not on social media. I know because of work and business, so I let the team handle those things. But we get a whole lot of that out of social media. And those who understand the business side of things are able to respond to that. When we have 5 people here in front of you and we have to do something or impress them, they will feel or touch that in a different way. So we try to make sure that how do we make everyone appreciate and feel it. But also what is important is what was the vision for Joy Celebration. And we pride ourselves that throughout all the years, we're approaching 30 years now of Joy Celebration. Throughout all those years, we've stayed true to that very same vision. And the vision was, when we started Joy Celebration, was we saw a platform that can create, that can be a university, that can be an academy for potential young musicians or young talent out there. And we're still doing that. I think we pride ourselves that about 50 to 60% of top musicians, especially in the gospel space in this country, come from Joy Celebration platform, and they've been trained there. But it doesn't end there. The creatives, the producers, most of the producers of most of the top-selling artists that are doing very well right now comes from the Joy Celebration platform and training and grooming. And we really have stayed true to that. So when people see someone doing very, very well, when they're Joyous fans, they come to them. It's natural that we wish Joyous can do that. Whereas going back, we've been pioneers all along. And we need to stay true to that and not change. And we try and make sure that we don't put ourselves in that competitive space. As much as business is very competitive, but again, draw the line that you still need to feed, you still need to groom, you still need to develop. So you can't be doing both. It's either you develop or you are in competition with these other people. So
I'm quite interested in how you see Joy Celebration as, of course, being this talent hub and presenting so many opportunities for aspirant musicians and many of the country's top musicians, as you're saying, have their roots in Joy Celebration. Has that acceptance come over time? That look, maybe part of our existence is to be this talent house, because in the earlier years it seemed to be quite a thing when somebody left Joyous, you know. I remember being a child and a teenager, and you just see front page of Sunday World, Mang exits Joyous, you know, or Joyous rocked by another exit. And but it seems that with time, you've been able to find a good middle ground. And talk to me about that evolution.
I guess news will be news. But it's a very good thing when somebody feels it's time and the correct moment to leave Joyous Celebration. And every time when it's the time, those who do it smoothly and it's part of their personal growth, which is what we preach, that they need to focus on their personal growth. The question I always ask, what's the plan? Are you ready? Others will find that they do have plans. Others are ready. Others are just excited by when I walk on the Joyous stage, people scream, people shout. So I am ready for the next without a plan. And that is somehow dangerous. So when during the time and the years when you were saying there were those headlines, I think it was because there was something that us as Joyous we had not done properly to say, this is who we are, this is what we stand for. We are about doing this very same thing, that people need to come here, we take them raw, rough diamonds, and we polish them, we prepare them for the world out there. Now when they are going out, it's hooray to us. We're excited. That's a celebration to us. And we need to keep doing that. We won't stop doing that.
You've mentioned something so important about what the Joyous stage presents.
Yes.
That, you know, you're having the packed auditoriums, the packed performance venues, wonderful reception from the crowd. And I guess it can be very easy for artists to look at that and say, well, that's me. You know, if you look at the recordings, of Joyous, you always see when one person comes on, the crowd is like, somebody else comes on and people are just, you know, besides themselves. What are the conversations that you have with your artists around how to manage that? Because it is something that I would imagine within a group setting needs to be managed.
Very, very true. Now, that's the interesting thing about being a musician and artist. That is not just about your talent. Your talent tends to play perhaps half the role or even less of half the role, about 30% or so. What is more important is your character, your attitude, your behavior, your discipline, how hard do you work for your craft, for your art. Those are the things that will make you a better artist. That's why you find other people who are not necessarily talented, but because they are hard workers. And I pride myself that most of the time I fall within that group of just hard workers. There are people who are more talented than me that I find myself training and grooming, and they turn out to be, yes, I was correct. They have that kind of talent. And if they add these other things that I'm talking about, then they really go out there to make it. And there's a long list that I'm so proud of that have all these attributes, that they're successful because of these other attributes more than their talent.
Lindelani Mkhize is our guest for the Friday Wind Down. We're talking, of course, about Joyous Celebration, of which he is a co-founder. Some exciting plans coming up. It's April. Easter's coming up. So, of course, Easter doesn't happen without Joyous Celebration. He'll be talking to us about this as the hour continues. I'll also take your calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107.
Good morning, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe, making headlines this hour. State prosecutors in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial in the High Court sitting at Saldanha Bay in the Western Cape are still trying to quash allegations that the accused were tortured by police. Lawyers for accused 1 and 2, Jacqueline Buta Apollos and Stefano van Rijn, have alleged that their clients were beaten and tortured into giving a confession for their part in the disappearance of Jocelyn. Parliament's Justice and Constitutional Development Committee has agreed to recommend Advocate Dinky Dube to be appointed as Deputy Public Protector. This position has been vacant for more than a year after the then Deputy Public Protector, Koleka Gcaleka, was appointed to the top job in November 2023. And finally, an elderly woman has been hospitalized after falling into a gorge upstream of the Elands River mouth in Grootkrans, near Storms River in the Eastern Cape. NSIR spokesperson Craig Lambinon says rescue crews were activated when the 74-year-old local woman was seriously injured in a fall while on a hiking trail yesterday. I will have details on these and other stories at noon.
WAFCON reigning champions Banyana are back on the battlefield against the Scorchers, ramping up their preparations for the upcoming Women Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. This is the international friendly. Witness the African champs, South Africa versus Malawi, this Saturday 5 April at 2:30 p.m. Live streaming on SABC Plus, SABC2, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Our music heritage, right here on the Friday Wind Down.
You're listening to the Friday Wind Down. Our guest today, Lindelani Mkhize, the man, at least one of them, behind Joyous Celebration. It must, 30 years on, you were talking about the 30th anniversary of Joyous Celebration coming
soon,
up. Yeah. That's 30 years of this business as you describe it, building it, rising, falling with it. What keeps you going, and what has kept you going as the man behind the music?
Yeah, truth is, in this business, in this industry, there are too many ups and downs. But believe it or not, it's the downs that keep me going. Those hard times, those look like failures, and how you kind of turn them around and you rise from that. Because you might be down with whatever purpose and direction you are taking, only to find that there's something that is bubbling that you are not actually aware of. You just need to open your eyes wider. And I'm one person who always believes that the answers are always within you. With everything that you are dealing with every journey you are taking, the answers and the roots and the direction comes from your head and your mind. So the downs do keep us going, because it's always pleasure. It's always so great when you come out of that. And because of what is happening in the world, what is happening in the country, we are actually dealing with that right now. And we are slowly feeling, yes, the coming out of it. The fact that we are still standing 28 or so, 29 years later, that alone is something to be grateful for. The fact that we are still able to go out there, perform, we are still very, very grateful for that.
Speak to me about a low moment that you have experienced that maybe left you feeling like, okay, I think...
A number of them. Once you've brought in a huge group of young people, and they're looking up to you to move and go forward, and you can't do much because perhaps there are no proper resources at that particular time. You need support, you need financial resources to be able to work with them, rehearse them, groom them, drill them, prepare them, and let them be able to get on that platform and sing and perform. Those are sometimes can very, very get rough and tough when you have to navigate your way and to create that particular moment. So those are tough times. But again, it's always a triumph when as I keep saying, when they're able to stand on that stage and perform. I mean, just is a very, very expensive outfit. We have a crew of about 90 people.
Sure.
60 out of those are on stage, 40 are working behind the scenes, and we train and we groom across the board, not just singers, technicians, across the line, from sound technicians to lighting technicians to audio technicians to everything that you see happening on stage. It's young people who are being trained, who are being groomed, to how these guys dress, the styling, the little things like makeup, when we source, or for every show, especially now, everything is content. So these young girls have to look good, so they have to prepare themselves, do their hair. So it's a huge long list of people who are part of this. So cost for those things are very, very high, and also personnel. I mean,
would you say that the cost that goes into the production is more than it used to be?
Oh, wow.
Especially because, I mean, the society has evolved.
Expectations.
Before, it would just be, people that you sing in magazines, on TV, that have the latest weaves, or they have the latest this and that. These days, everybody wants to find themselves in there. How has that affected how you actually decide what goes into your productions?
Let's start with this and the reality that we are facing. The cost of everything have just gone up, especially after COVID. A show that will do for so much, now it's actually cost us double. People think that when they come to a venue and they peg the venue, we are good. No. We need support, we need sponsors, we need relationships who come in and say, we'll give you the hall for free, or we'll do this for you, or we'll do that for you. Because what we get from the gate, and we can't take our prices high. They're used to paying this. They're also struggling like everyone else, you see. So we can't say, no, now the show should be... the jazz show is worth 1,000 rands, but we can't charge that, especially because we are a family show. We are a family production. We encourage people to bring everyone, bring the kids, bring the young ones, bring grandmas. It's one event that you enjoy as a team, as a unit, as a group of friends, as the whole family. So we have to keep the prices as as manageable as possible, which is a serious cost. But also talking about what are some of the challenges. Even personnel, people, managing people is not an easy thing. Managing relationships is not an easy thing. So now and then that becomes a challenge, because you might find that as we grow, we see things differently. We want to do things differently. So managing all of those things is always a process. But if you have the right frame of mind, you are able to pull through. Yeah.
What keeps you going? What would you say has centered you over the years?
A number of things. I have to be honest. I'm one person who believe in community, who believe in association, who believe in relationships. The people around me have really kept me going. From my family, who are very, very supportive, my wife and my close family, to my partner at work, my business people, the friends that are surrounding me. I was shocked in one of my friends' group, they were talking about, hey, one of us is on radio. I mean, those things really drive you. You have these people who love and appreciate you, and you can't seem to be going backwards and be failing. So I have very, very good friends. My community where I come from, Durban, Mlazi, they are very supportive of everything that Lindelani is involved in. They rush to buy tickets, they support the music. So all of those things really do keep me going. I hate failing, so I don't like to fail them. The passion I have for what I'm doing, the hard working, I love working hard. I don't sleep most of the time. It's a number of things. These young people that I work with across the board, they looking up to me and expecting that, because we are next to Babum Kiza, something should happen with us. All those things really keep me going and driving me.
And in fact, we've just gotten a WhatsApp message that says that I just wanted to share that I've always dreamt of joining Joyous Celebration, and I feel ready now. Literally this morning on a whim, I guessed Dr. Mkhise's email and sent him a message with 2 videos of me singing. And the listener goes on to say, please ask him to check his email if I sent the right one. I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that he's received it. And if I'm accepted, I'm ready to move to Johannesburg from Cape Town.
Oh, wow.
I'm originally from Congo, and I think it's time we also represent on the Joyous stage.
I agree.
I'm 22. And like you're saying,
those are the things that drive me. I definitely will check that email. Yes,
this is everyday life for you.
Exactly. Even now we've got 3 very powerful young people who have joined us, and the MD, as I was coming here, was telling me, hey, we really need to push these kids. They have something in them, and it's very exciting times for us when we have people like that who are sending emails to say we have this, and we love checking them, and I will check that email.
I mean, you basically are running somewhat of an idol stage without really it being an idols, right? Not being packaged in that form, but you are uncovering, unearthing this very raw music talent and bringing in this fusion of a South African sound.
Yeah, very important. And with us is the journey, because we are there with you on that particular journey. There's no timelines. No, you have to take a 6 months to be trained, and you take your time, we groom you, we are patient with you, and then we give you the platform to be on that stage. Hence, I always say, please don't miss a joyous show or joyous performance, because Nat, it always surprises us. Wow, yesterday it was like this, today it takes another level.
Wow. Let me bring in Sillo from Berkeley West. Sillo, good morning.
How are you, Sister Cathy?
Good, go for it.
I'm not Sister Cathy, man. Hey, Sister Cathy, I'd like to talk about Volume 5 of Joyous Celebration. There is a lady, I don't know if it's Volume 5, there is a lady who's singing Jokoya How Ebo Baby. Do you remember that song, The Dim Keys?
Yes, sir, I do very well. It is actually Volume 5, yes.
Yes, that song, The Dim Keys, Jokoya How Ebo Baby, I'm still playing it even today. When I'm happy, or when I'm sad, or when I'm traveling, hey, that song, The Dim Keys, that Volume 5, The Dim Keys, I still have it in my car.
Thank you, sir. Imagine that was when 23, 24 years ago, and it's still talking to you. That's the idea. That's what we create.
And then can I make one request, that Dim Keys?
Yes, sir, I'm listening.
Yes. Do you know that guy, Senito? Senito is singing Afropop from Botade.
Semito from Bochabelo. I'll look up for him. I don't know Semito.
That guy, the Demkize, is from a gospel background.
Okay.
Whenever he's performing first, he normally sings gospel song like your songs. Just he has one album of he has a one song gospel song. The Demkize.
Okay.
Just invite him for only one song. Then we can hear you in that.
I'll check him out, sir. Thank you.
That guy is dangerous. He's dangerous.
Okay.
It's those guys who's running away from their talent, going to Afro when he can do gospel. Thank you,
Okay, thank you. I'll check him out, but also check a young girl or guy around there who's not known, who have never gotten any opportunities. As you say, Sam have released a lot of albums, as you say. I'd love to work with the fresher one, the younger one, who's not known, who has never released anything before. But thank you. I'll check Sammy also.
Which has been your most successful volume?
We are grateful to South Africans out there that after so many years, after 28 years, when we look at the top music in the country, and I'm talking music, not just gospel music, within the top 5 of including mama piano, kwaito, whatever genre that is there, without fail, South Africans always make sure that jazz is within the top 5.
You're giving me a politically correct answer.
I
have a break. I have a break coming up. Which one has been the bestseller? When you sit there and you think, I must repeat what I did on that volume.
It's different eras. I'll tell you, because remember we come from the DVD era. So there were songs that were very big within the DVD era, music that was big in the DVD era. And now when we are in the streaming era, it's changed, the scope have changed altogether. But also what was surprising, just the past month, a song that we recorded 12 years ago was in the top 10 in the country.
You see, being very political. Very political.
The Hammers want to ease off the pressure with collection of 3 points at the London Stadium to rise from the bottom half.
We picked out Socek, and there is the goal! And he scored a few this season!
However, the Cherries believe a top half finish will be a good cherry on top.
Crosses towards the back post, looking for Tavernier! Who side-foots it past Vicario! And that is brilliant from Bournemouth!
This is the Premier League. Be part of the thrilling contest between West Ham United FC and AFC Bournemouth on Saturday, 5 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM Music. Good times, good memories. Old school, sounding so good. SAFM Music, with you wherever you go.
Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
Our Friday Wind Down guest is none other than Lindelani Mkhize. I mean, the accolades the man has received throughout his music career, it speaks for itself. You probably, when you walk out there these days, I'm sure you're like, yeah, I don't have much else to prove. If you tell me awards, I've got them. You tell me bestsellers, I've done it. So what motivates you today? What gets you out of bed?
What gets me out of bed now is that everything that I touch, every artist that I'm blessed to have an opportunity to work with, must get the same accolades that I've received. Interestingly, I was talking about it yesterday at rehearsal, saying to the team, to the choir, guys, let's work so hard so that you are the ones who will be in the media next time receiving accolades and receiving awards, because I love people next to me to really grow from strength to strength. And that's how in the industry we tend sometimes to check and judge and weigh how far you are. So when I see them, I mean, at the moment, some of my artists are doing so well. Bo Xoli, Bo Sbuno, they are collecting accolades left and right. They are filling up halls, Abontogozo. And they keep taking turns among themselves. And I'm loving and enjoying that. And I want more of that. And yes, definitely, more of those will come.
You're like KFC now, ne? You've got the winning secret recipe. Huh? What's the recipe? What's the formula?
As I said earlier, just the passion, loving what you're doing, working hard, respect the people out there who support and come to your shows, who listen to your music, listen to them. I always try to. Talking about that, the show that is coming was not even decided by us. We are all roads leads to Durban this Easter weekend, because the people have asked that we'd love to go back and do a retro show and rewind and go back to the old previous music. So they are deciding right now which songs that we should perform on that day. They are also deciding what kind of artists they want to see Easter, during the Good Friday at the Joyous Easter Mega Fest in Durban.
Love it.
Yeah.
Quentin, you're in Newcastle. Good morning, very quickly. Hello, Quentin.
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
Good. You're live on the radio.
Yes, thank you. It's my first time, I think, in SAFM.
Yes, sir. What do you want to say?
No, I just want to speak to. I just want to just ask Mr. Lindelani something, man, and it's been in my heart recently. There are some sleeping giants, as Joyous Celebration is one of the biggest music brands in South Africa. Can they please maybe wake those sleeping giants and maybe do a project for them? The first guy that comes to my mind, there's a guy I think is one of the best vocalists in South Africa. His name is Chenkosi Boy. It's from PE, and many others. That Joyous Celebration can wake them up. We missed those voices back in the 90s. In the early 2000s, miss those voices. And those guys are sleeping probably because of their, I don't know, record labels, whatever. They are sleeping,
Okay.
But as Joyous is the biggest brand in South Africa, I think one of the projects that they must engage in is to bring back those people that are talented, that we want to hear, but they can't stretch out their hands and be able to make their voice heard.
Okay, Quentin. Let's leave it there. Wake the sleeping giants.
Wow. I must say, it's a serious compliment when the gentleman thinks that we are the people who can be able to wake the sleeping giants. So we appreciate that, and we'll look at who those are. It's interesting that within the group this year also, there's one of the ladies who kind of returned, who used to be Joyous years ago and is back again. So I guess it's in line with what he's asking for. Greek giving them a chance and an opportunity again. So we are already on that road. We'll check it out.
Sipho in Bushbuck Ridge, good morning.
Sis Cathy, how are you? And how are you, Mr. Mkiza?
Say, how are you doing?
Thanks so much. It's Sipho here in Bushbuck Ridge. Master, last week I was talking to my wife while we were busy watching one of the TV channels. Joyous was singing, you were there. Then I said to my wife, I have never heard bad stories about this man, or he's doing what, that is wrong. So we want to say to you, keep it up the way you are, doing the right thing, because many men, when they are surrounded by so beautiful ladies there, they start to do wrong things, and at the end of the day, find out the project failed. So the Joyous celebration is still intact, and we see your leadership. We appreciate you. We say, may the good Lord bless you, keep you going, respect them, respect everyone. As we know you, you are so humble. We love you so much.
Thank you, Puti. And please keep praying for us. It's not easy to
Hallelujah.
everything
Amen.
that you've explained. Keep praying
Amen.
for us.
God
We
bless.
need all the prayers and support.
Thank you for that call, Sipho out in Bushbuck Ridge. So as you've mentioned, you're getting ready to do it all again. Mega Fest coming up, Easter weekend.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about it before we wrap up the show.
Yeah. Very exciting times for us. Joyous Easter Mega Fest. All roads leads to Durban. Somehow Durban is our home in a way. For Joyous, that is, yes. Yes, I was literally born there, but for Joyous, it's also becoming that. We are inviting everyone. This is one you can't miss. If you haven't booked your flight, if you haven't booked your bus or whatever, that will take you to Durban. You need to be there. The weekend will be exciting. We try and make sure that the 2 days that we are there, we are 19 and 20 there. The first day, it will be the Rewind Show, where we go back to all your favorite hymns, all your favorite songs, chosen by you. The program is set and decided by our fans, our friends, our audience. They decide who should be on that stage. They decided which songs we actually should sing. And then the following day, it's Joyous 28 and Friends, the latest episode of Joyous Celebration that was recorded last year. It's exciting music, and we're also inviting some friends, some unknown, some known, but people who love Joyous Celebration. So it's a show not to be missed. And buy both tickets, don't buy one, because the shows will be totally different, but very exciting in the level, in the standard, in the how we usually produce Joyous Celebration. It's a serious production.
So if you're looking for things to do Easter weekend, definitely one of the solid options you can explore. We've come to the end of the show. We're back next week. Have a lovely weekend. Mr. Mkize, thank you for having
me. You were chatting with me. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Just after 12 on Friday, the 4th of April, 2025. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour.
We believe that language is an embodiment of culture and heritage, and that without knowledge, you won't get anywhere.
International Relations and Cooperations Minister Ronald Lamola says that South Africa needs clarity on how the U.S. reached the number of 31 on tariffs, and scholars as well as linguistic and cultural experts believe everything should be done to ensure that indigenous languages are preserved. Now, please share your views with us. 41391 is the SMS line number, charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X at SABC News_radio, or send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082-692-3909. And these and more stories coming up on this Friday edition of Updated Noon. First, though, let's bring you up to speed with the latest news with Jwalane Tulo Ngwepe.
Thank you, Sakina. Top story is the SAWA system failures blamed for last year's building collapse in George, and Advocate Dinky Dube recommended to be appointed as Deputy Public Protector. Good afternoon. The Human Settlements Minister, Thembi Simelane, says several system failures on the side of the National Home Builders Registration Council led to the collapsed building in George in May last year. The collapse that took place during construction caused 34 deaths and dozens of injuries. Briefing Parliament's Human Settlements Committee on the report that followed an investigation, Simelane painted a picture of several lapses on the side of the NHBRC.
A failure of our systems at the NHBRC, particularly one with ensuring that the mandatory requirements, prior registration, and guarantees that are needed for an enrollment of a building process and procedures are followed. For example, attachments of enrollment certificates, which needs to happen before the building or any building can commence, and that happened later.
Parliament's Justice and Constitutional Development Committee has agreed to recommend Advocate Dinky Dube to be appointed as Deputy Public Protector. The Office of the Public Protector has been without a deputy for over a year. The position has been vacant for more than a year after the then Deputy PP, Koleka Galeka, was appointed to the top job in November 2023. The initial process of finding a suitable candidate to recommend for appointment to President Cyril Ramaphosa was abandoned last year following a reasonable apprehension of bias because of the presence of former Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane, who was an EFF MP on the Justice Committee at the time. Parliament held a new round of interviews in October last year. The Alice Masters Court in the Eastern Cape has refused to strike off the roll the case against the 16 accused in the fraud and corruption case linked to activities at the University of Fort Hare. Defence lawyers filed an application to have charges dropped, citing unreasonable delays in the matter. Presiding Magistrate Mhlanga Bala turned the application down, saying that the delays are not unreasonable but systematic.
If one has regard to the seriousness of the charges, the extent and the complexity of the charges. Resultantly, the following order shall issue. 1. The application to have the matter struck from the roll due to unreasonable delay be and is hereby refused. 2. The application by the state to have the matter postponed in order to obtain the recurrence certificate be and is hereby granted.
State prosecutors in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial in the High Court sitting at Saldanha Bay in the Western Cape are still trying to quash allegations that the accused were tortured by police. Lawyers for accused 1 and 2, Jacqueline Apollos and Stevino van Rijn, have alleged that their clients were beaten and tortured into giving a confession for their part in the disappearance of Jocelyn. This week, the court has been conducting a trial within a trial to determine whether their confessions will be admissible. The court has been looking at the video confession of Van Rijn. Captain Philip Sigui from the Western Cape Crime and Investigation Services, who was tasked with taking Van Rijn's so-called confession, has concluded his testimony. Sergeant Sibuko Meyi, the videographer who captured Van Rijn's confession, is now on the stand. Accused number 3, Kelly Smith, the mother of Jocelyn, is also back in court today after being excused yesterday due to falling ill. And finally, an elderly woman has been hospitalized after falling into a gorge upstream of the Elands River mouth in Grootkrans near Storms River in the Eastern Cape. NSIR spokesperson Craig Lambinon says rescue crews were activated when the 74-year-old local woman was seriously injured in a fall while on a hiking trail yesterday. Lambinon says due to the serious injuries she sustained, paramedics indicated that the patient would need to be evacuated to hospital as soon as possible. He says a helicopter rescue operation was investigated but was not available.
An NSRI crewman and 2 EMS rescue paramedics assisted by the local farmer hiked from the nearest off-road roadway, negotiating a sheer cliff hiking trail to reach the hiking party with the injured lady at the foot of a 400-meter sheer cliff face. The rescue craft reached the shore safely. The patient, in a serious but stable condition, was transported to hospital by EMS ambulance in the care of paramedics. She is reported to be recovering in hospital in the care of doctors and nurses.
Recapping the top story this hour, the Human Settlements Minister Cathy Mohlahlana says several system failures on the side of the National Home Builders Registration Council led to the collapsed building in George in May last year. The collapse that took place during construction caused 34 deaths and dozens of injuries. For SFM News, I'm Jolani Tulongwepe.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Thanks, Jolani. Good afternoon, everybody. 8 minutes after 12 it is, and thanks for tuning in to Update at Noon. So here are some of the stories we'll be bringing you updates on this afternoon. So you heard there in the news with Jolani, the Minister of Human Settlements, Cathy Mohlahlana. She was briefing the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlements on that George building collapse and on the role played by the National Home Builders Regulators Council in that matter. So we'll bring you up to speed on what was said in that briefing. Another important briefing today, the Ministry of Police and Police Commissioner, they are set to brief the media, and we're actually waiting for that. And this on the investigation into the alleged sexual assault of a 7-year-old girl. And this follows the deployment of a dedicated team by the National Commissioner to conduct a thorough investigation into that incident. And we've got Horisani Sitole watching that, but we're also monitoring because we are going to take you there live should that come up during the time that we're on. And then another briefing, and I see that has just come on my screen, and that is by the Ministers of International Relations and Cooperation, Minister Ronald Lamola, and the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stow. They're hosting a joint media briefing to talk about South Africa's strategic approach to the new U.S. tariff regime. And I see Minister Lamola just started talking, and I'm saying it's just started because it's just come onto my screen, but I'm not sure whether they had started a while ago or whether this just began, or I'm told no, it was slightly earlier. So we have clipped that for you, so we will bring that for you as well in terms of what they've had to say after Donald Trump basically upset the entire apple cart, and like the whole world is in a flat spin given what Donald Trump is doing, and he didn't spare anyone, even colonies or islands where you only have colonies of penguins. So it's an interesting time with regard to the Trump administration and how it is affecting geopolitical relationships the world over. Then there's a UJ SASCO march, and then they are outside the building where I am broadcasting from, and they are saying it's a march for Kwekwe, the 7-year-old little girl of whom the police minister has set up that, the police commissioner rather, set up that dedicated team. And they are marching and saying that the SABC should give more coverage to that particular matter. So Calvin Dludla is outside and covering that, and we'll find out what the students have to say and, of course, their demands in greater detail. We're also watching the HIV trial. Scientists and researchers from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, in partnership with ARI and the Sub-Saharan African Network for TB and HIV research, they're discussing the latest finding from what is a groundbreaking HIV cure trial. And it's led by Professor Tumbi Ndungu. Now, this trial, which is, of course, the first of its kind in Africa, it has apparently shown some really promising results with 20%, they say, of the participants remaining off antiretroviral therapy, and they still are virally suppressed after 18 months. So we'll try and see how far we can take that for you. A few other stories, and the public protectors you heard there in the news, and also some court stories that will probably bring you some updates on. And of course, it's a Friday. Martin Creamer steps in with an update from the coalface.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Now, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, says that the country is navigating the storm after the United States' decision to impose a new 31% import tariff. The minister says that government is working tirelessly to secure favorable trade deals. U.S. President Donald Trump imposed the import tariffs against South Africa for goods exported to the United States. And Lamola says that key sectors like the automotive, agriculture and manufacturing sectors will be affected. Here's Minister Lamola explaining.
The new tariff regime arising from the decision by the United States of America, which have been directed not only to South Africa but to the entire world, necessitates strategic responses to maintain and grow our industrial base as a crucial avenue to pursue inclusive growth. In response to the U.S. government's imposition of tariffs, South Africa will continue to navigate the challenges and opportunities these measures present with resilience and innovation. Guided by its national interests and aligned with its broader trade and industrial policy, South Africa is committed to ensuring economic growth, industrial development, and the well-being of its citizens. South Africa intends to negotiate favorable agreements. South Africa will work to secure opportunities in context of rapid withdrawal of favorable arrangements, giving our exports preferential access to the United States of America. This might involve securing additional exemptions and favorable quota agreements, ensuring our industries maintain critical access to the U.S. markets, including through sectoral cooperation. This aligns with the national interest of promoting economic prosperity and safeguarding the livelihoods of South Africans. Diversity and expand trade relations. Efforts will intensify to diversify export destinations, targeting markets across Africa, as well as in Asia, Europe, Middle East, and the Americas. Moreover, such efforts will also, where deemed appropriate, involve bilateral arrangements where these allow for the pursuance of our national interests.
Lamola went on to say that on the global stage, South Africa is stepping up too. With the G20 presidency in sight, the country is championing supply chain diversification, a hot topic for open economies worldwide.
In our presidency of the G20, as the recent engagements at the G20 Trade and Investment Working Group indicate, the issue of supply chain geographic diversification is a challenge confronting all open markets economies across the globe. This diversification supports South Africa's industrial strategy and reduces the dependence on single destinations markets for our exports or single sources for intermediate input requirements, fostering resilience in line with national economic priorities. South Africa will leverage the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to bolster intra-Africa trade, fostering stronger regional economic integration and cooperation. This approach aligns with the national interest of contributing to a better Africa and a better world. Focus on value-added production. Industries will prioritize transforming raw materials into high-value finished goods, reducing tariff exposure and driving innovation to improve profitability. This supports South Africa's industrial policy objectives of boosting local manufacturing and creating jobs. Stimulate domestic growth. The government will invest strategically in industries impacted by the tariffs, supporting economic growth through modernization and targeted infrastructure development. This aligns with the national interest of ensuring the well-being of South Africans. Forge global alliances. South Africa will continue to build strategic partnerships with other nations, enhancing collaborations and our influence in the international trade negotiations. This reflects the national interest of strengthening global diplomatic and economic ties. South Africa's tariffs and industrial strategy are designed to support industrial development, employment growth, and economic resilience. By aligning these policies with the national interest, South Africa will ensure that its economy emerges stronger, more diversified, and resilient in the face of global trade complexities.
Well, at the same media briefing, Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Park Stow says that they still want confirmation from the United States as to how they reached the number of 31% on tariffs.
Firstly, I think it is to confirm that the U.S. has stated, in fact, our mission in Washington has confirmed that it's not 30% is 31%, and that there was an error on the side of the US. They have since confirmed that it is 31%, which is 50% discounted. And of course, the issue is where does the 62% come from if in fact actual tariffs are at 7.6%. Of course, everybody is doing a calculation and speculating on what could be included. The safest thing to do is to get confirmation from the US as to how they arrived at the number. Right now we're speculating whether they've calculated balance of trade, whether they've calculated what they consider to be matters around public policy and the implications of public policy, and a whole range of considerations on the basis of the reports that were considered in Congress, but also on the basis of the statement they issued. So at this point, we're all speculating, but I think the safest would be to get confirmation from the US as to how they arrived at the number, and to clarify, in fact, how we are working on the number that historically we've been working on with the United States in relation to tariffs, which are transparent because they are calculated on the basis of international norms and standards, utilizing World Trade Organization standards with regards to calculating tariffs, particularly as you employ the most favored nations mechanism of calculating tariffs across the board. So we trade with the US, we trade with the rest of the world, utilizing the same platform. So in essence, we calculate it on the basis of it being 7.6%. The second issue is, does it nullify AGOA benefits? As you would know, AGOA is, it's legislation in the US that's reviewed annually. Excuse me. It's legislation in the US that is reviewed annually, and to the extent that the executive orders have essentially said that that legislation would not be applicable. In this instance, we work on the basis that it has nullified the AGOA benefits. In particular categories, there are areas where there have been specific exclusions, and Minister Lamula indicated the areas of specific exclusion. It does also exclude areas such as auto, which is calculated on the basis of the across-the-board 25% increase in auto tariffs to the US. So that's covered in a different platform, which is on the automotive sector.
And that was Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Park Stow. It's 20 minutes after 12.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m.
The Human Settlements Minister Thembi Similane says that several system failures led to the collapse of the building in George in May last year. The collapse that took place during construction caused 34 deaths and dozens of injuries. Briefing Parliament's Human Settlements Committee on the report that followed an investigation, Similane says that almost 300-page report detailed several lapses in the construction process.
The commencement of the building started on the 3rd of July 2023, but the enrollment was completed 8 to 15 days after the building has commenced, which means there is a finding also against Mr. Kruger of Leatel and our officials whom I have mentioned on top, but including Ms. Sinazontak, who was supposed to be dealing with the oversight of the building. Remember, you must go to site even before the foundation is dug, before the workers report, before site. Then you must check the establishment of site and all those before even digging happens. Ms. Ntaga was responsible for that, and there were regular lapses, as I indicated, in the system. There wasn't much found with regard to the material that was used. For example, there were concrete tests that they were done. Here, the indication is that the material used was of quality. but the processes and the systems and the structural designs are what would have led to the collapse of a building. Because remember, if you start planning it as a single phase and then you multi it to a multi phase, it means your pillars and everything needs to be strengthened in a way that is suitable for a double or a multi-story building. And it shows that there were inconsistencies. That is why they filled the first form, which was single story, and they started, but then they did a second fill up of a multi-story, completing a form called AR003. And at inspection, when they start the multi-story part, it shows on our records that we bypass quite a bit, particularly in terms of assessing Leotel with regard to their technical assessment, if they can manage this type of a job.
And that was Human Settlements Minister Thembi Simelane. Please let us know your thoughts on that briefing that took place in Parliament. This, of course, was a big story last year, and this is the finding.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m.
Quick message here from Zaki. Zaki says, SK, can you ask Home Affairs what we should do to get bookings for new smart cards? We tried for 2 months now and we don't get any dates from Home Affairs, and those who are in matric currently, they need their ID cards. Mamponya, Roodepoort, Orlando, always full. Okay, so we'll try and follow up on that, Zaki Matebula, and we'll try and find out from Home Affairs what the issue is. And you're right, but I'm not sure whether they actually make special concessions for matriculants because, yes, they need their IDs so that they can register to write their National Senior Certificate exams at the end of the year. But we'll find out if there is a problem in those areas, and we'll revert hopefully before the end of the show. If not, Zaki, just send me an email and we'll try and get you an answer by next week. It's 25 minutes after 12.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
The 5 honorees of the 29th Annual Klein Karoo National Arts Festival have made a lasting impact in the industry. Marian Holm, Leanne van Rooy, Henk Serfontein, John Theodore and the Jewels Fantasties have been awarded for their contributions towards uplifting the arts in South Africa. Sagri Chetty has more on this.
Two actresses, a music group, a music master with roots in Oudtshoorn, and an award-winning visual artist were the honorees at this year's KKNK Festival. They all have one thing in common, a Kunste Onbeperk Award for their contribution to the arts. This year's KKNK Festival artist, Henk Serfontein, celebrates 30 years in the industry.
I'm a visual artist and I work in the intersection between the Afrikaans language, in which I often use Afrikaans poetry as an inspiration for my visual images. I create very realistic charcoal drawings, and I've based my work on a ecological poem by Wilma Stockenstoel.
Marion Holm received the Kunste Onbeperkt Prize for interpretation. Her contribution to comedy, as well as her work as an actress on stage and TV, have repeatedly shown her versatility over the years.
I'm not used to awards, so I am so scared somebody's going to come and fetch it, but I'm deeply, deeply grateful. It means so much to me.
Die Ewels Fantasties received the Kunste Onbeperkt Prize for innovative thinking. Since the release of their first album in 2009, they've made a major impact on the Afrikaans music industry. Here's band member Hunter Kennedy.
I didn't really know what to expect from it. It was a bit more high profile than I expected, actually. And I feel honored to be on stage with such great other artists.
Actress Leanne van Roy is the recipient of the Craspunt Prize for taking young actors and writers under her wing and helping to expand the country's treasure trove of stories. Oudtshoorn's own renowned pianist, teacher and mentor, John Theodore, received the KKNK Prize for service to the arts. I'm Segri Chetty in Oudtshoorn in the Western Cape.
And with just about a minute to headlines, just a few other stories that we're watching for you this afternoon. The Public Protector, they today releasing finalized investigation reports during a media briefing in KwaMhlanga in Mpumalanga. And the reports relates to findings after the community complained to the Public Protector and on several matters, and the Public Protector is there giving some feedback on some of those complaints today. And I think very importantly, because sometimes people feel that they are not listened to, so that feedback session happening. And then in the courts, 5 suspects appearing in court today who were arrested last month for a series of church robberies in and around Sophia Town. And remember the murder of Pastor Wayne Gordon. So there was that possibility that they might have been involved in his murder as well. But of course, as I say, that was a possibility. And this comes after one of the suspects on Monday was shot dead after law enforcement agents exchanged intense gunfire with alleged criminals in Sophia Town. So Griselda Lewis is in court watching that one for us. And Sebastian Mota, she is in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, and there she was following for us the matter over former Speaker of the National Assembly, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, in her bid for further disclosure from the state in that criminal case against her. Now, the former Speaker wants full disclosure, but the state, of course, refusing to hand over Part C of the docket initially, and this is the matter that the court had to grapple with today. All right, we'll come back to all of that. It's 12:30, and here's Dralane Tulongwepe with your latest headlines.
Thank you, Sakina. Good afternoon. Making headlines, Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Parks Tau says a decision taken by US President Donald Trump to impose 30% tariffs against South Africa has nullified the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA. AGOA is a legislation that was approved by the US Congress in May 2000. The Human Settlements Minister Thembisi Melani says several system failures on the side of the National Home Builders Registration Council led to the collapsed building in George in May last year. The collapse that took place during construction caused 34 deaths and dozens of injuries. And finally, the Alice Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape has refused to strike off the roll the case against the 16 accused in the fraud and corruption case linked to activities at the University of Fort